Here's a startling truth. Clutter steals far more than space in your home. It drains energy, robs your peace, and quietly chips away at focus, motivation, and confidence. Many seniors don't realize how much time, mental energy, and even joy is lost searching for things buried under piles, stacked papers, or crowded countertops. Every misplaced item, every drawer crammed with things you don't use, silently adds stress and frustration to your daily life, leaving you exhausted before the day even begins. Imagine walking into a room and seeing everything in its place, breathing freely, and knowing you can find what you need instantly. Imagine reclaiming your home, your comfort, and the calm that comes from order. In just 48 hours, this is possible. Today, I'll share 7 ruthless, fast-acting hacks that helped one senior woman transform her home from chaos to calm, regain control, and feel lighter instantly. These methods are designed specifically for people over 60, emphasizing safety, speed, and emotional relief, so you can declutter effectively without stress, overwhelm, or waiting months to see results. Take back your space, your energy, and your peace starting today. Meet Evelor Brine, 74, a retired ceramic artist from Portland, whose life has always been filled with color, creativity, and quiet routines. Her home, once a sanctuary of clay, paint, and the gentle aroma of lavender candles, had slowly transformed into a maze of unfinished projects, old brushes, dusty jars of glaze, and stacks of unopened mail that had quietly piled up over the years. Each corner of her house told a story, but the stories had become heavy, weighing down her spirit and clouding her once sharp mind. Evelor loved her memories, her art, and the little treasures she had collected through decades of life, yet the very items that once brought her joy had begun to feel like a burden she could no longer ignore. She found herself hesitating at doorways, tripping over small obstacles, and constantly feeling overwhelmed by the clutter that now defined her living space. One afternoon, while bending to retrieve a rolling pin under a heap of mail, her foot caught a forgotten box of glaze, and she stumbled, narrowly avoiding a fall. In that instant, she paused and whispered to herself, "No more." It was a turning point. Evelor realized that if she continued to live like this, the chaos would continue to sap her energy, limit her mobility, and quietly steal her independence. She made a firm decision. She would reclaim her home, her safety, and her peace of mind within the next 48 hours. She wasn't looking for perfection, she was looking for freedom. She envisioned walking through her rooms without fear, finding her favorite pottery tools without digging through piles, and simply being able to sit, breathe, and enjoy her surroundings again. Evelor knew this would take focus, strategy, and ruthlessness. She would have to make swift decisions about what to keep, what to let go, and what truly mattered to her life right now. This wasn't just about tidying a home, it was about regaining control, restoring confidence, and creating a living environment that reflected the calm and joy she deserved. Over the next 2 days, Evelor embarked on a transformative journey, using techniques that anyone over 60 could follow, proving that it's never too late to take bold, decisive action and reclaim your space, energy, and peace, no matter how long the clutter has been accumulating. Hack 1. The Silent Room Strategy. Evelor knew that before she could tackle the piles, the stacks, and the chaos, she needed clarity of mind. She began her 48-hour mission with what she called the Silent Room Strategy. She turned off her television, silenced her phone, and closed the front door behind her, stepping into the quiet of her living room for the first time in weeks without any background noise to distract her attention. At first, the stillness felt almost unnatural. Her home had always been filled with the low hum of music, the occasional clatter of her pottery tools, or the soft buzz of her phone reminders, but she resisted the urge to reach for anything immediately. Evelor simply stood, letting her eyes slowly scan the room, taking in the clutter not as objects, but as signals of unfinished business, postponed memories, and neglected spaces. In that quiet moment, she noticed details she had long ignored. The cracked mug she had kept on her coffee table, a relic from a morning with an old friend, suddenly felt heavy with unspoken sadness. The lamp in the corner, once the perfect companion for late-night sketching, now sat lifeless, dusty, and unused for years. And in the far corner, the pile of someday projects, unfinished vases, half-painted plates, and envelopes filled with old invitations, loomed large, a silent reminder of procrastination and hesitation. Normally, these things were background noise, blended into the chaos, but in the silence, they spoke clearly. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, Evelor treated each item as a question. Does this bring me peace, joy, or function in my current life? If not, it had to go. She didn't dwell on guilt, memory, or sentimentality. She acted decisively, understanding that clutter isn't just physical, it's emotional, mental, and often invisible until you allow space to notice it. She grabbed a large laundry basket and began systematically moving items that no longer served her, broken objects, items she would never use again, and things that invoked stress instead of happiness. She worked methodically, sweeping the room with her gaze and her hands, making sure no piece of clutter remained in the areas she wanted to reclaim first. Within 30 minutes, the basket was full, and Evelor felt a tangible shift in the atmosphere of the room. What had felt heavy, oppressive, and stagnant now carried a sense of lightness, clarity, and possibility. The very act of removing items that didn't belong in her piece became empowering. She could breathe deeper, move more freely, and even imagine the rest of her home following suit. The silent room strategy wasn't just about identifying clutter, it was about creating a mental and emotional reset. By stopping, noticing, and acting with intention, Evelor reclaimed the space in her home and in her mind. This approach is especially powerful for seniors, who often accumulate not only physical items but emotional baggage over the years. Standing in silence allows you to differentiate between what is essential, what carries weight from the past, and what can be released without regret. It transforms decluttering from a chore into a mindful, restorative act that nourishes the soul as much as it clears the room. By dedicating even a short period to intentional silence, anyone can begin to see the clutter not as insurmountable, but as a series of choices waiting to be made decisively. Try standing in silence for 60 seconds in your own room. What starts to feel heavy or out of place? Hack 2. The no-floor policy. Evelor's next rule was simple but firm: nothing lives on my floor. For seniors, clutter underfoot is more than unsightly. It's a safety hazard, a constant source of stress, and a drain on energy. Over time, even small piles of paper, shoes, or miscellaneous items can make moving through your own home feel tiring or risky. Evelor realized that clearing the floor first would not only protect her physically but also give her mind a sense of relief and control she hadn't felt in years. She started with her main walking paths: the entryway, the route to her kitchen, and the corridor between her living room and bedroom. Every loose item, shoes, folded laundry, stacks of mail, tote bags, or forgotten crafts, had to be picked up and either returned to its proper place, donated, or discarded. Evelor didn't just push items aside, she made decisions quickly and decisively. Each object removed was a small victory, a visible sign that her home was becoming more navigable and her life a little lighter. As she worked, Evelor noticed immediate benefits. Clearing the floor allowed her to move freely without fear of tripping, giving her confidence with every step. The visual clarity of open space lifted an invisible weight from her mind, and the room suddenly felt larger, brighter, and more inviting. She then turned to neglected corners and spaces around her favorite chair, clearing stacks of magazines, old pottery tools, and decorative items that no longer sparked joy. Each cleared area gave her a sense of accomplishment and momentum, making her eager to continue with the next steps of her 48-hour challenge. Evelor also found a mental strategy that helped her stick to the rule. She imagined her feet as the front line of her sanctuary. Any object on the floor was considered an intruder, demanding immediate action. This mindset transformed a simple cleaning task into a purposeful ritual, turning decluttering into an empowering activity rather than a chore. By the end of the day, her living room, hallway, and kitchen paths were entirely clear. She could walk through her home with ease, experiencing the rare joy of open space underfoot, a freedom she hadn't felt in years. The no-floor policy also created ripple effects throughout her home. With the floor cleared, Evelor could easily spot overcrowded surfaces, misplaced items, or areas needing attention. She became more intentional about where items were placed, reinforcing habits that would maintain order beyond the 48-hour window. The open floor gave her energy she hadn't realized she'd lost, and her days suddenly felt smoother and lighter. This single, decisive rule didn't just tidy her space, it restored her sense of safety, control, and peace, setting the foundation for the remaining steps of her rapid transformation and proving that sometimes, the simplest rules bring the most profound changes. Hack 3. The Exit Zone Method. Evelor's next tactic was bold, visual, and surprisingly simple, yet it became one of the most powerful tools in her 48-hour decluttering mission. She placed a deep red laundry basket near her front door and dubbed it the Exit Zone. Its purpose was clear and uncompromising. Anything that no longer served her life, brought stress, or took up mental space was to be placed in this basket immediately. This could be a faded scarf she hadn't worn in years, a dull spatula that never made it to the kitchen, a broken vase gathering dust, or even piles of papers she had been meaning to sort. The moment an item touched the exit zone, Evelor knew it was on its way out. There was no lingering indecision, no second-guessing, and no maybe-later thoughts. The rule was ruthless but freeing. If it touches the exit zone, it leaves the house within 24 hours. She set an hourly reminder to walk past the basket and deliberately add at least one new item each time. Evelor quickly discovered that this small, visual system gave her momentum. With every object added, she felt a sense of progress and achievement that motivated her to continue. The exit zone also created a psychological shift. Rather than seeing decluttering as a massive, overwhelming task, it became a series of small, deliberate decisions repeated consistently. Every object she removed was a declaration of her priorities and values, what she wanted to keep in her life versus what she was ready to let go. By the second morning, Evelor had already made 2 donation runs, and the change in her home was palpable. Her hallway, which had once been a narrow, obstacle-filled path, now felt twice as wide. Walking through it no longer required caution or careful steps. She could move freely, with energy and confidence she hadn't felt in years. This simple method not only cleared physical space but also reduced mental clutter, freeing her from the anxiety of seeing items that no longer served a purpose. The exit zone became a symbol of action and decisiveness, helping her overcome the common tendency to hoard or procrastinate, which is especially common among seniors who attach sentimental value to decades of belongings. Evelor also found that the exit zone encouraged a habit of mindful evaluation. She began asking herself questions as she picked up items. Do I need this? Does it bring me joy or utility today? Will it matter next week, or is it weighing me down? This mental exercise trained her to make faster, clearer decisions and increased her confidence in letting go. Within a few hours, even items she had hesitated to part with for years were leaving the house, and she realized that releasing these possessions didn't diminish her memories, it enhanced them by allowing space for new experiences and freedom of movement. The exit zone method worked because it made decluttering immediate, visible, and actionable. It prevented Evelor from delaying decisions, created a tangible sense of progress, and transformed what could have been an overwhelming mountain of clutter into a series of achievable, empowering steps. By the end of the second day, she not only saw a dramatic difference in her home but also felt lighter emotionally, mentally, and physically. This simple yet strategic placement of a basket near the door doubled her results and energy, proving that small, consistent actions, executed with intent, can create profound change in just 48 hours. It set the stage for the next hacks, ensuring that every subsequent step built on this momentum and made her decluttering journey faster, smarter, and deeply satisfying. Hack 4. The 2-hour timer blitz. Evelor quickly realized that tackling clutter for long, unbroken stretches was exhausting, overwhelming, and demotivating. At her age, spending hours on end sorting, lifting, and moving items could easily lead to fatigue or even injury. She needed a method that respected her energy, kept her motivated, and made decluttering feel manageable and even enjoyable. That's when she invented the 2-hour timer blitz. She set her phone to a strict 2-hour limit, twice a day, and committed to working only within that window. No extensions, just 5 more minutes, and no distractions. These dedicated, short bursts created urgency and focus, allowing her to accomplish far more than she had in leisurely, unfocused sessions. To make the time even more enjoyable, Evelor added a personal ritual. She put on her favorite Ella Fitzgerald record, letting the music fill the room and set a cheerful, rhythmic pace for her work. The jazz melodies weren't just background noise, they became a motivator, a companion, and a subtle timer. Each song reminded her of progress and kept her moving with intention. The music transformed the effort from a tedious chore into a structured, joyful activity, and she found herself looking forward to the sessions rather than dreading them. The rhythm of the music guided her hands, her pace, and her decisions, creating a sense of flow that made even the largest piles of clutter feel conquerable. During one blitz session, Evelor tackled her long-neglected kitchen counter, which had been buried under stacks of mail, unused appliances, and random kitchen gadgets for over 5 years. In just 2 hours, she cleared every surface, wiped down the countertops, and organized her cooking essentials. The transformation was immediate and striking. What had once felt like an insurmountable mess now became a functional, inviting space where she could actually cook, enjoy meals, and even host friends without anxiety. The short, timed bursts allowed her to maintain focus, avoid overwhelm, and achieve visible, satisfying results in a fraction of the time she had expected. The 2-hour timer blitz also helped Evelor overcome the common trap of perfectionism. Knowing that each session had a clear start and stop time freed her from the pressure to finish everything perfectly. She learned to prioritize, decide quickly, and let go of minor details that didn't impact the overall progress. This approach not only accelerated her decluttering but also built confidence and momentum, as each session ended with tangible results that encouraged her to continue. By structuring her work into bite-sized, achievable intervals, Evelor discovered that she could maintain energy, motivation, and focus across the entire 48-hour period. Additionally, this method created a natural rhythm for her day. The 2-hour blitzes became anchor points, with breaks in between for rest, reflection, and small rewards like tea or a short walk. This balance of work and rest prevented burnout, allowed her to maintain physical stamina, and made the overall decluttering experience more sustainable and enjoyable. By the end of the second day, Evelor had transformed multiple rooms using this method, including her kitchen, living room, and bedroom surfaces, proving that short, focused sessions with clear time boundaries could yield dramatic results. The 2-hour timer blitz not only cleared physical clutter but also renewed her energy, lifted her spirits, and provided a repeatable strategy that any senior could use to reclaim their home efficiently and joyfully. Hack 5. The 3-foot rule. Evelor's knees weren't what they used to be, and after decades of bending, stretching, and crouching, she knew that long, physically demanding decluttering sessions could quickly become painful and discouraging. Determined to continue her 48-hour mission without risking injury or exhaustion, she invented a strategy that was simple, effective, and completely tailored to her physical comfort: the 3-foot rule. She decided to focus only on what she could reach within a 3-foot radius while seated on her favorite sturdy stool. This approach allowed her to tackle clutter in manageable, safe increments, making the process both sustainable and empowering. Evelor began with her living room, sitting in the center on her stool and scanning the immediate space around her. She picked up each item within her reach, quickly deciding whether to keep, donate, or discard it. The rule forced her to work deliberately and stay focused, as she could not ignore what was directly in front of her. Once she had cleared her first mini-zone, she shifted her stool slightly, taking the next 3-foot radius, and repeated the process. By breaking her space into these small, contained sections, Evelor avoided the overwhelming sensation of staring at an entire room filled with clutter. Each cleared mini-zone offered a visible, tangible sense of progress that fueled her motivation and made the next section feel achievable. The 3-foot rule also transformed Evelor's mindset. She realized that decluttering didn't have to be about exhausting herself or attempting to clean everything at once. Instead, it became a series of small victories, each one giving her confidence, energy, and momentum. By focusing only on what was immediately reachable, she made rapid, deliberate decisions about each item, rather than wasting time on hesitation or indecision. This not only accelerated her progress but also reduced the emotional strain often associated with letting go of possessions. As she moved from mini-zone to mini-zone, Evelor noticed other benefits. By working at her own pace, she could also enjoy moments of reflection, remembering the stories behind certain items and deciding if they still added value to her life. The process became meditative. Her hands were busy, her mind was engaged, and her body was protected. By the end of the first day, she had cleared entire sections of her living room and bedroom, and the satisfaction of seeing immediate results reinforced her commitment to completing the 48-hour challenge. The 3-foot rule also encouraged smarter organization. Once an area was cleared, Evelor used it as a template for how she wanted her spaces to feel: open, accessible, and calm. It reminded her that even small, incremental actions could create substantial change over time. She discovered that she could tackle corners, shelves, and drawers she had avoided for years simply by applying this principle. Focus on what is within reach, complete that section fully, and then move on. For seniors, the 3-foot rule offers a method to reclaim control over a cluttered home without risking injury, fatigue, or discouragement. It emphasizes safe, manageable action, visible progress, and emotional satisfaction, turning what could be an overwhelming chore into a structured, rewarding process. Evelor's experience proved that with the right approach, even the most stubborn corners of a home can be transformed quickly, efficiently, and safely, while also building confidence, energy, and momentum for the next stage of decluttering. Hack 6. The Clear Counter Command. On day 2 of her 48-hour decluttering challenge, Evelor focused on the heart of her clutter, her art table. Over the years, it had become a catch-all for unfinished pottery projects, brushes caked with dried clay, scattered notes, scraps of paper, and even a cup of tea long forgotten. What was meant to be a space of creation and inspiration had transformed into a visual reminder of unfinished tasks, accumulated items, and mental chaos. Evelor realized that to reclaim her sense of peace and focus, she needed a radical reset, a completely clear surface. She approached the table with intention and decisiveness, evaluating every item in front of her. Anything that didn't actively serve her today, tools she hadn't used in months, papers she didn't need, or decorations that added no joy, was removed. Some items went back to storage, while others were placed in her exit zone for donation or disposal. There were no compromises and no maybe later exceptions. Even her favorite tools had to earn their place on the cleared tabletop, reinforcing the idea that every object in her environment should have a purpose. Once the table was completely empty, Evelor paused to take in the transformation. The blank surface wasn't just cleared space, it became a sacred area, a visual and emotional declaration that this was her sanctuary. Running her hands across the smooth, uncluttered surface, she felt an immediate sense of relief, focus, and possibility. Clearing the table didn't just impact the physical space, it reshaped her mindset, reminding her that order and calm were achievable in a tangible, visible way. With a clear surface, Evelor could approach her creative projects without hesitation or distraction. She could organize tools, start new pieces, and enjoy her workspace again without the mental friction of clutter. This method could also be applied to any surface in the home: kitchen counters, desks, bedside tables, or dressers. By reclaiming key surfaces first, the impact radiated outward, making the entire room feel lighter, calmer, and more manageable. The Clear Counter command also offered emotional benefits. For seniors, accumulated clutter often carries sentimental weight or years of habit. Evelor discovered that letting go of items on a single surface didn't erase memories, it highlighted what truly mattered and gave her space to focus on living in the present. Every cleared tabletop was a victory, reinforcing confidence and providing the energy to tackle other zones of her home. The method transformed decluttering from a chore into a series of achievable, empowering actions. By the end of this step, Evelor's art table no longer symbolized unfinished business or disorder. It became a beacon of clarity, calm, and reclaimed personal space. This one decisive action demonstrated that even a single cleared surface could reset an entire room, inspire continued progress, and create a lasting sense of peace. The Clear Counter command became a cornerstone of her 48-hour transformation, showing that focused, intentional action can yield remarkable results for both the home and the spirit. Hack 7. The Night Before Reset. As Evelor approached the final stage of her 48-hour decluttering journey, she introduced what she called the Night Before Reset, a simple yet powerful routine designed to close each day with calm, reflection, and intentionality. Unlike the earlier hacks, this one didn't involve moving furniture, clearing floors, or sorting piles. It was about creating mental and emotional closure, reinforcing her accomplishments, and preparing her mind and home for the next day of transformation. Every evening, Evelor dedicated 10 minutes to this practice. She began with small, intentional tasks that were effortless yet psychologically significant. She folded her blanket neatly at the end of her bed, smoothing the fabric so it felt welcoming and orderly. She washed her cup from tea or coffee, placing it carefully in the dish rack. She tidied any remaining small items on surfaces, ensuring that each space felt complete and cared for. These simple motions were symbolic. By attending to her surroundings, she was acknowledging her progress, honoring her efforts, and reinforcing the idea that her home was now a sanctuary rather than a battleground of clutter. After tending to her space, Evelor paused for one slow, mindful breath of gratitude. She reflected on what she had achieved: the cleared floors, the sacred surfaces, the exit zone that kept her moving, the focus and energy of her 2-hour blitzes, and the confidence built from each mini-zone she had conquered. This moment allowed her to internalize her accomplishments, giving her a sense of pride, calm, and satisfaction. By separating physical action from mental reflection, she made her decluttering experience emotionally rewarding and deeply reinforcing, creating a habit that could be maintained well beyond the 48 hours. The night before reset also helped Evelor regulate her energy. Seniors often expend physical and mental reserves quickly, and without deliberate closure, fatigue and discouragement can set in. By dedicating just 10 minutes each night, she preserved her stamina, reduced stress, and created a psychological anchor that kept her motivated and focused. The ritual reminded her that even small, consistent acts can have significant impact and that progress need not be overwhelming to be meaningful. As the 48th hour arrived, Evelor didn't just observe open floors and organized surfaces, she felt serenity. Her home had become a space of clarity, calm, and ease, where movement was effortless and the mind could rest. The night before reset ensured that these gains were not temporary. Each evening reinforced order, gratitude, and intentional living, turning decluttering from a physical task into a holistic practice of emotional and mental renewal. Evelor's experience demonstrated that sustainable transformation for seniors is not just about clearing space, it's about creating rituals that nurture both the home and the spirit, making peace, clarity, and joy lasting companions in everyday life. As Evelor sipped her morning tea in her calm, sunlit studio, she let out a contented sigh and smiled, whispering to herself, "I thought I'd lost my energy to age. Turns out, I just buried it under stuff." The once crowded, chaotic rooms of her home had been transformed in just 48 hours. But more than the visible order, it was the invisible change that thrilled her most. She had rediscovered her rhythm, her confidence, and the simple joy of moving through her own space without obstacles or worry. Each cleared floor, every reclaimed surface, and all the small victories along the way had compounded into a sense of freedom she hadn't realized she was missing. Evelor reflected on how each hack had contributed not only to a cleaner home but also to her sense of empowerment. The silent room strategy had taught her to see clutter with clarity, the no-floor policy had given her safe, open paths, the exit zone method had trained her to act decisively, the 2-hour timer blitz had made decluttering manageable and even joyful, the 3-foot rule had protected her body while creating rapid progress, and the clear counter command had restored sacred, uncluttered surfaces. Finally, the night before reset had reinforced her accomplishments, turning each day's efforts into lasting habits and mental calm. Her transformation was a vivid reminder for all seniors: change doesn't require months of grueling work. With focus, intention, and small, consistent actions, even a home long buried in clutter can become a sanctuary of peace, clarity, and energy. Evelor felt lighter, freer, and more in tune with herself than she had in years. Every movement, every decision, and every cleared space became a celebration of what it meant to age gracefully, intentionally, and joyfully. Pick one hack tonight. Your 48-hour freedom starts the moment you do. Even one small step can set a ripple effect of clarity and calm in motion. Before you go, remember to hype this video. It's how YouTube knows seniors' voices deserve the spotlight. Scroll down, swipe left on the comment preview, tap hype, and confirm. You get 3 free hypes a week. Each one helps our community grow. So go ahead, tap hype, hit like, and subscribe for more inspiring stories on wise aging seniors. Your home, your peace, and your freedom are waiting. Claim them today.